welcome everyone. It's episode 12, and today we're doing a topic that's near and dear to my guest's heart. And it's mental health in 40k and surviving the doom of a shattered edition. Now, if that's the actual heading of the thing, we'll see. But I thought it was very, very funny. So my guest is Vander. He's a wonderful member of Team Ethos, down in south of Brisbane. Also in the southern part of Australia below Brisbane. We'll leave it at that. He's a man of mystery. So Vander, how you going, buddy?
Yeah, good, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right. So because this is Vander's first time, and as I'm doing with all the Ethos boys, I'm getting them to introduce themselves and tell everyone that's particularly interested. If you're listening here, you're interested about what they love about 40k, or enjoy about 40k. It's probably a better one. They're not a 40k enthusiast; they're a 40k enjoyer. So, Vander, go for it, mate.
Hi. Yeah. So, what do you want to know? Like why I got into 40k? I guess. This game's a social game for me, first and foremost.
Who you are, what you do, as much as you would like to share, but also specifically about 40k. What got you into it?
Okay. Yeah. So I think it's a social game for me first and foremost. I only really started playing probably like anybody when I was really young, and then stopped immediately. And then 8th edition came along, and a friend of mine, Connor, decided that actually he would also like to play, and I'm more than happy to share hobbies like that with friends where possible. And so it became just a casual thing that we did on the weekends, just dicking around, and eventually 8th edition became actually really quite fun, took that to competitions. And I think 40k sort of evolved from this social engagement for me also to this hobby that has now become like a pretty integral part of my life. But I've only really been like involved since 8, I would say, since 8.
So when you say you started when you were younger and kind of stopped, like what got you in the beginning?
I don't know, man. I think like the classic cliche, like my friend's older brother had some Eldar that were metal in his basement, and I saw them and they thought were cool, and then I often bought some orcs. And then they stayed in my garage.
You saw the Eldar and you say, you know what? That's cool. Let's get some orcs.
I think it was Eldar. I think he had Avatar. And then I ended up buying like a bunch of really old, like I don't know, 2nd edition orcs or something. Those really crappy single pose dudes. I still got them. And but then I stopped touching that stuff for years. I went into Magic for a little while, actually, Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I did that.
And then stayed with that for ages, played it almost professionally, and then came back to this.
Yeah, I was kind of like that for me. I saw the Space Marines and I said, "Yeah, that's pretty cool," and immediately bought Tyranids.
Yeah, but the messy stuff's the best stuff.
Absolutely.
No one wants to be the hero.
No, the hero turns into the villain very, very quickly.
And there are no heroes in the grimdark future, right? We all know that.
Pretty much. All right. Well, what got you into Ethos, or what interested in Ethos?
Connor's like a super social dude, and he like pulls me along to these spaces, and I really enjoy that. So I think Connor, like, he knows Eric and the whole team, actually the WTC team quite well, actually, I think. And then Eric gave us that opportunity. We sort of hopped on with Chris Wright back in the New South Wales, the Southern Brisbane team. And there's no reason to say no to to experience like that, like being able to have a conversation and sort of dip into the brains of some of the best Australian players. Like, why wouldn't I? And on top of that, like the attitude in Ethos is very like game centric and like people first, which I think is like if it wasn't that, I would have left, because I think that attitude is really quite integral. Like, no one needs to be hardcore winners in a space like this.
Yeah.
I think those people are actually pretty dangerous to sort of play with after a while. So it's I came in for like the convenience of it all, but I've stayed for the family sort of attitude.
Yeah. There's an interesting word that you just said there. Dangerous to play with. Can you expand upon that?
Yeah, like if winning's like the only thing that matters, then that's an infectious mindset, and the way that people sort of look at each other in the community is impacted on what people value. So if you spend a lot of time with people that only value winning, then that impacts the way that you exist in that community, whether you like it or not. you match yourself and measure yourself against their attitudes and their needs as well as your own, and you get caught up in that shit. Whereas, like, Ethos, for example, like, yeah, winning matters, but like the crew's already good enough. They don't really care too much about winning as much as they need to. It's more about like community and building a space that everyone can participate in. And if that is the ethos that you sit in, I guess pun intended, then you actually ultimately you can sort of choose. You buoy up to the surface with everyone else in that context, which I think is I think that infectious element of that can be used for good.
No, that's insightful, mate. I like it. Alrighty. What about what's the key thing in 40k that keeps you keen?
I really care about the paint jobs that I put on the table. And for a long time, any like committed painter will tell you, except for like the pros that like smash out an army in like 2 weeks, that looks amazing.
I.e. Duck and Alex.
Yeah, right. Like I can't do that. Yeah, I can't do that. But I will tell you that, like, anyone that's like super invested actually impacts your capacity to play the game at a top meta, right? Because it takes me like 3 months to paint the new shit that's awesome. So in the beginning, it was just painting, but then I played orcs for like literally 5 years straight, and eventually got to the point where I had everything painted. And so I got really competitive when COVID finished, and I tried my best to like do as much, because I had the opportunity for the first time in this hobby for me, where I could just pick any painted model. It looked beautiful. I was happy with it, and I could sort of like enjoy that. So I pushed as hard as I could that year. I got RTC Orc, which I was happy with, and then now, since I've done that experience, I've moved way back into realizing actually the art side of the hobby is what's really keeping me motivated. And so the pushing the drive part of it is actually slowed down entirely, and I've moved more into, I want to like do crystal brush, or maybe paint busts, or paint like really beautiful pieces that I can take places, a little bit more than the competitive side of it. But it waxes and wanes. Next year might be something entirely different. That's what's so cool about the hobby.
Yeah. You're shortly going to be the super whack player, and then Connor's going to go, what happened, man? You changed.
Yeah, exactly. When I have like 20,000 points of every army, then maybe I will be. But today, I'm not.
All right. So I wrote in the show notes for myself, just I was thinking, what do I know about Vander? And I was like, he's tall, and he's a great painter from the pictures that you shared, and from your armies that I've seen. And then I asked you, and you said focuses on others having a good time. Now, how do you bring that to fore? Like, how does that crystallize for you?
Casually, for a long time, I played like Nurgle lists and like tar pit lists, which, if you actually think about it, are actually kind of fun vampire lists, right? Like, my list sort of does things that turns your list off because you're not doing enough damage, like a stat check sort of list. And I found pretty fast that although I was enjoying that experience, my opponents were literally finding it depressing. And right, like this is like back in the Nurgle 5-up invuln 5-up feel no pain experience, right? Like, things are just unfairly durable, and I roll 5s really well.
Like, we'll talk about it in a second when we do a little bit of a touch on 10th, but mate, unfairly durable is the Wraith Knight.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just not fun. Right? After a while, although I was enjoying that,
opponent's face when they're just looking at it, it's like, right, so I did nothing. Cool.
Yeah. And so in some ways, like, for a little while there, I was squeezing a bit of fun out of that. But I think ultimately it got to the point where I was like, well, it's a social experience that I feel guilty. And I feel like disappointed in myself that this is the direction that I had to go to sort of ruin someone's 3 hours almost to enjoy the game. And so, I've fully flipped that approach now almost entirely. Like, if my list has something busted in it, I probably won't take it. I'd rather go and like have a neck and neck game. In fact, to be honest, I'd actually rather go and be the underdog and fight upwards, where everyone expected me to lose, and maybe sometimes I'll win. Because at least in that perspective, I'm almost confident that my opponents will have a good time. Because like orcs in particular, right? Like, pretty much everyone's having a good time killing a whole lot of orcs. But at least the process that my opponent is going through doesn't weigh on me. And unfortunately, I can't really turn that part of my brain off. I do care about the other person's experience.
Yeah, yeah. I found. So we'll talk ninth ed for a second. With my Dark Elder, even when they were strong as heck, they were still fun to play against. And all my opponents in generally said that because, yeah, I did lots of damage, but you killed stuff. Like I would almost never end a game with like almost my whole army, just living. It's you got huge slogs where you're just punching each other in the head, and it's like, oh, cool. Here's a boat and a bunch of witches dead and a couple of talars, etc. And then they do the same thing back, etc. So I know what you're talking about, where you might take a strong army, but we'll say like Imperial Knights. That some of the Imperial Knight army, especially like this game back in ninth, where you would like trans hitman, and you were just stupid hard to kill. Some armies just could not kill you, and so by the end of the game, they've killed one baby knight and they've been tabled. It wasn't a fun. Like I've been that person where I've played against the knight army. I've killed one, done nothing. And I said, oh fuck, what did I do against this? Yeah. Whereas even when Dark Elder were at their peak, you still lost over half your stuff. You might have steamrolled them, but you still lost a lot of stuff. They felt like they're contributing to the game.
Yeah, they're interacting. At least they're interacting and choosing what they're killing, which is I think fun in its own way. For sure. Yeah.
Orcs definitely could do that. Tyranids as well. Even if you're steamrolling someone, you're still losing a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, you're not dead on arrival. It doesn't look like that initially, at least.
Yeah. You can rock up to the table and say, you have lost so terribly, but they've killed half your army. Lost terribly, but still killed half your army.
Yeah. And I think with that little bit of fun that person can get out of that game is very essential to me.
Yeah.
Because it makes me have more fun.
Nice.
I think if I came along with an auto win button to every game, you know what I mean? I think some people would take that for real. I think some people would turn up and then, top every GT with the auto win button. But I would find that a very hollow experience.
Yes, and that leads us. You do these segues perfectly. Leads us to to the next topic. Now, just for anyone noticing, yes, my voice sounds a little bit different. I lost my voice last week because I had the cold, so I sound a little croaky. We'll move on with our lives.
You sound great, Simon.
All right, so Vander, 10th. Have you played any games?
I have. Yeah. I've played maybe 8 or 9 casual games, and I went to a little RTT. And I only played 2 of the games because I wanted to come home for dinner. But so that's it. 12 games ish.
You've played more games than I have.
Yeah, I got friends, man. We're just coming over. I got all my codexes are really good right now. I'm playing Thousand Suns, GSC, Orcs, and CSM.
Absolute meta chaser. Oh.
Yeah, man. They're all top tier.
All right. So anything. So as anyone who's listened to this before, knows, we do current events for a little portion of the podcast, and then we'll get to the meat and potatoes of the actual episode. So anything that you've noticed for 10th itself that you won't say hot takes, but just more like anything that's interesting that you think is really cool, or anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, man. Like tactical missions are awesome. I think tactical secondary objectives rather. I think they take games that don't feel like they're games, and even though they might be wrapped up in like turn 3 so far, it's actually super hard to tell. But even by the end of, we have to get to the end of turn 5 to really know who's won, which I have been really enjoying. That probably is a little bit of naivety, like I don't really know the flow of points as well as I did in 9th.
Yeah.
But it's also not locked, right? So in 9th you can math out the game pretty much by turn 2 or 3. Whereas 10th you can't, and that makes the later end of the game, in my opinion, way more engaging. Like, what if there's none of this gambit shit? That's a waste of time. But I mean, like, what if I get these 2 things and he gets these 2 things? Then actually, it's an 18-point swing or something. You know what I mean? Like, it might still be a game, and I have to play to those outs. So I'm really enjoying the tactical secondary experience. Although I think fixed is strictly better for some particular armies. Which is a shame.
Yeah.
And I also really like the mission decks. Like, mixing that stuff up, especially casually. You know, when we're like, oh, we've already played this matchup, we can intentionally pick another weird mission rule, and the primary just feels different, like entirely different, and it kind of feels like you're almost playing a new game.
Yeah.
So
I
those elements have been great.
100% agree. And in fact, there's a couple of other podcasts that I listen to. And one of them is Contact Loss, and I think it was the Polish captain or someone from the Poland team said the same thing I've repeated a bunch of times, which is if they took like the kind of missions and the secondaries and things like that of 10th and then slapped it on to 9th, we'll say no other changes. That's me done for the next 20 years.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because there's so many games you could squeeze out of those combinations, and it will always feel a bit different. And
and I felt
it's got replayability.
Yeah, not to repeat myself from the last episode, but I felt 9th was getting reasonably balanced, and we had a pretty good meat on the bone, so to speak. And what you just said, like what were the elements that made it stale was a bit of the terrain and the kind of mission packs, but also then the secondaries, and it got to a point that was getting mapped out, but the game itself was still, in my opinion, very balanced. And combining those two elements of the game, so 10th ed missions and all that sort of stuff, with the 9th ed rule set, that I'd love that.
Yeah, I agree. And if I'm honest, because going back to the previous part of the conversation, like how I love durability and just standing around on objectives, I feel like I can do a little bit of that in this game more than I could before, which I actually kind of like. There's probably good and bad things based on balancer discussions, but the game doesn't feel like super over as long as I'm not playing broken shit over the first 2 turns. It just doesn't feel that way. Like, my friend brings us like Blood Angel meme lists with just a bunch of 10-man death companies like flying with hammers. They're crap. But I bring a bunch of whatever I can for orcs, like a whole bunch of one-offs. And we have really interesting dynamic games. Whereas if I took that to 9th, I suspect I would know the outcome of the game at the end of turn 1. And that's just boring.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, for me, we'll quickly cover some of the stuff I did on the weekend, because we did a fantastic team event. And I still think team events are the only and best way that you should play 40k. Single events, they're fun enough, but if whatever's happening in the game at the exact second that you're playing if there is some imbalance, you can get the kind of the benefit of the game, what you get from this game through a team event, be it camaraderie, be it pairing and kind of working around the imbalances and shit like that. So for me, I love team events. I'm going to go to almost every team event I can. That's especially in Southeast Queensland, and luckily we have them reasonably often. Now, the team event that we did have, it was run by our wonderful Mr. Josh McGowan, and Gladiator Gaming's did a fantastic job as always down at Fitzy's. What I really liked as well was there was tons of new people, as in I've seen maybe, I know about a third, I've seen about just under a third, and then almost 50% of people, because I can do maths, guys. Yes, you can add that up. I hadn't even seen before, which I thought was fantastic. We had, I think, 2 clubs, maybe even 3 come from Toowoomba, whereas maybe we get one before. Was it the is it Risky Rollers? There was another club that I know they've sent 1, maybe 2 teams before, and they had 3 full teams. It was great, and we had a great time, and we had a couple of the WTC boys doing a training camp down the Gold Coast at the same time. So, and we still had a full big tournament, which I thought was really, really good. Just for people, because there was a bunch of people who were asking, and I might as well quickly chat about it here. My list was what I consider a stupid list, and it's one of them where you don't go there to make friends and influence people. It was 3 Wraith Knights, a yncarne, and a bunch of other stuff. Now, I lead with the 3 Wraith Knights, but the yncarne was actually the most toxic thing in the list.
Really?
Yeah. So you know what the yncarne could do before? She's now harder to kill because she's a 12 save, toughness 10, half damage. and she can now charge after teleporting.
Oh no.
Yes.
That's gonna fuck with people's brains so much.
Oh,
really? That's powerful. That's really good.
So I had sorry, one of my games was against an Imperial Guard player, and I killed a Lehman Russ next to his big parking lot in the back. So I went first. Oh no, did he go first? Whatever. Let's say I went first. I killed one of his Imperial Guard tanks. I teleport yncarne over, shoot some dudes, like behind the wall, like heavy weapon stuff. Charge into a manticore, kill it, pile into the next manticore. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much the game there.
Yeah, wow, jeez. And then the Wraith Knights clean up the rest of the army anyway.
Oh, so yeah, and that's just one Wraith Knight, and you can't. The other two Wraith Knights that you're kind of wandering about. One, because of Fate Dice, makes an 11-inch charge, guaranteed, of course, straight into a bunch of Sentinels. And I then, because I can guarantee, and this is one of my kind of lessons learned thing, because you can guarantee dice with Fate Dice, and because 10th Ed, it's combat. I talked about this last episode. Combat is so much more difficult to get some of the movement tricks that top players, want to get. Because if you can make a combat like base to base, you have to get into base to base. However, if you can measure exactly what you need, so it's like, oh look, I need 10.5 inches. So you'll grab a 10-inch. You make the charge, so you can never overroll it, and you can then pile in the full 3 and tag other shit. And because you don't declare a charge on the other thing, that rule's gone for 10th, and you can now swing at that other thing. It's chef kiss at how stupid it is.
You loved it. You had a great time. It sounds like you had a really good time.
I did. I made 3 people not run away, but yeah, I tabled 2 people on turn 3 and 1 person turn 2. Yeah, that's how much I loved it. But my most closest, one of my funnest games, in essence, and I'm going to link it back to something you said, which is how you're always kind of in the game, and you're not quite sure what's going to happen or what the result is until the end, even if you're getting absolutely dumpstered, against GSC specifically. So I played round 1, playing Ollie. He's playing his GSE, and I'd killed all of his army like twice over, and I'm just standing on all the objectives. But because he's always respawning dudes, and he's just staying in there, and I won 13-7, I believe. Yeah, but it would have been way bigger, except for his very last turn. He preemptively pulled 2 of his units off the board, like at the end of my movement phase, I think, or the end of my turn.
End of your turn, yeah.
Yep. And then he draws his 2 cards, and he had hold my backfield objective and deploy a homer, in essence, in my deployment zone.
Perfect.
And he got
come in within 3 inches.
Yeah, come in with 3 inches. He got a 13-point swing on the secondaries to pull it back from a 15 or whatever to a 13, right? And their team won by 1 point. We were at a draw. And they won by 1 point. And he got a 13-point swing on the last turn. And it was so fucking close. It was a great game. That was my first game of the tournament. And I said, oh, that was really fun. That was really good. And then my second game is against Elder Mirror, and there was a close one, so I got 12-8 win there. And then
they also have 3 Wraith Knights?
No. That was Nick Argent. He raid a Wraith Guard unit, and then all the tanks, like triple Knight, double Night Spinner, triple Fire Prism, etc.
Yeah, okay.
He had the yncarne as well because fun. Very, very close game as well. And then the next 3 games are just absolute steamrolls. But I just loved what you said before, which was all my opponents were lovely, but you just see their eyes, kind of when you hit them hard, kill half their army. They then shoot you back with their, big laser cannons and all that type of stuff, and you're going, "Oh, what AP is that? Oh, yeah, well, he's getting cover because my toe here is getting covered by this ruin." So I need a 5-up save. Well, look at that. I got 4-5 on my dice. Yep. And by the end of their turn, they've shot all their thing and caused literally 0 damage to a Wraith Knight. Just look at their face and it's just like, no blood there. And it's like, oh my God.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't do it.
Mate, I wasn't happy with it, and I'm not doing it anymore. I had a point to make, so to speak. I proved the point.
You did.
And I'm not doing it anymore. I did feel bad.
I took GSC to an RTT, right? And GSC is also busted in their own ways, and I think a lot of people know. But like, there's a demo bomb squad, right, for 150 points.
Yep.
That can just one shot a night.
Yep.
And like, so I didn't bring any of that. I'm not interested in that noise. And I brought like a Bane hammer instead, just like a really big paperweight, and did my best to sort of play 1,500 points up. And still had some fun games. I think I only had fun games thanks to the fact that I didn't bring those things. You know what I mean?
Look, it is a very good point. So just the quick thing, lessons learnt for anyone that's asking from the tournament on the weekend. And hopefully, I mean, GW have indicated that they're going to be changing a bunch of this stuff. Towering is a stupid rule. They should feel bad. Sorry, no, you're bad, and they should feel bad about it.
Yeah, they should.
Having knowledge of guaranteed dice for both alpha and defense is stupid, and it's actually the thing that's the key broken part of Eldar. Not including literally everything else and all the... Just forget everything else. Just that the guaranteed dice, because guaranteed dice for top level players is like when you take randomness and all that other stuff out of the mix. That's the bit that can be abused the most. The guaranteed dice, or guaranteed knowledge, sorry, speak of what's going to happen. And as you mentioned before, so some armies fixed missions is absolutely the way to go. And if your army, for example, you're running 3 Wraith Knights, it generally can't play the kind of draw the card thing that well, because most games, especially if it gets kind of close, you'll get to the end of the game where you've only got 3 Wraith Knights left. So you're kind of just standing there like a big dumb robot, and you're just hoping by the time you've got to that point, you've got your fixed missions that you've picked done. Now, right now, almost every list I looked at, but every opponent I played, they give up either, it could be both, but either bring it down or assassinate for the full 20 very easily. And then the third one that I came to pick then for the 3 games in a row was I think it's like Storm Assault or something. I got no idea. It's the old Shock Assault.
The one where you steal their objectives.
Yeah, it's the old Shock Assault. So it's a very easy 12. Realistically, you should be trying to get 16. I mean, it caps at 16, but it's very, very easy 12. I got 12 all 3 games. I actually got 16 in 2 of the 3 games, but I didn't try. I literally just walked up, shot things, got my bring it down / assassinate, and stole their objective with a OC10 Wraith Knight. It's like, ooh, that was fun.
Do you think tactical is still strictly better though, because you can't 20 in both of those?
Yeah. I wouldn't take my list though. Like it's better if you take an actual list. I tried tactical in the 2 practice games. 3 practice games. I tried tactical, and I actually didn't max any of the things because I ran out of stuff, and so then I was losing on primary because I couldn't sit my Wraith Knights on key objectives because I'm trying to achieve tactical stuff. You know what I mean? So instead, I just go for game plan. I'm going to this objective. I will be there in 1 to 2 turns, and I'm going to sit there for the rest of the game.
Feels like your tactical prowess is wasted with this army, but it sounds like you also had fun.
Yes, and that is why I'm not playing it anymore. I did it once. I did it for the team because no one in our team wanted to actually play Eldar, and it was. I was talking to Justin on the drive down. It would have hurt our team if our team didn't take Eldar. Not from a fun point of view, but from if we actually wanted to try and do well.
Because you're actually the good guy in this story. No one wanted to do it.
There you go.
You're the hero.
Oh, look at that. I'm actually the hero that jumped on the Eldar grenade, and then I just happened to pick up the grenade. Like, this is my dreams, of course, and 360 no scope it back in straight down the Yes. Okay. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's talk about the main topic. I love it. We're halfway in from a little bit of an intro.
Wait, did you tell everyone you came second?
Yeah. Okay, sure. And our team came second.
That's important. Yeah. Well
it is.
Congratulations.
Thanks
to the grenade.
Thanks to my generous jumping on the grenade, our team came second. No, sorry. Our team, I'll put on some photos of our team. It was a bunch of mates of mine. So Red, Rory, Marcel, myself, and Half Duck. But he only managed to make it for the first day. He was a little bit on suicide watch after day one because what he thought Grey Knights do and what they actually do are two completely different things. And so we had two wonderful ringers day two. So we had Reese and oh God, don't do this to me. James, no. Yes, James. Oh, thank goodness. I remembered his name. James. My apologies, James. And James actually got Duck's medal at the end, and he's in the photos as well. So, all congrats to Ollie's team, round one, the one that we lost by 1 point. They came first. So very, very good work to them. And Ipswich team came third. I don't know who the captain was, but I know Petro was in that team. So yeah, great. Overall, it was a really fun weekend. And yeah, Brave Knights / Elder Stupid. Anyway, let's move into the main topic, mate. So, as I said, the topic, mental health for the K, surviving the doom of Shattered Edition. Right, that's just a meme heading, but I know it's something that was important to you. But tell us why this specifically, or why is this topic interesting?
I come from Magic, as we discussed, right? So I think like the ambition for Warhammer 40k to feel and be this professionally balanced game, I think is really silly. And I think it will never be that. Not in the same way that something like Magic is, which is like a much more contained space, which has less variables involved and a little bit less gentlemanship required. Do you know what I mean? Because we don't have to agree upon things. Things are just happening inside a state in front of us. And I think as a result, like, you can't treat it in that way. You can't treat 40k as if it is this paragon of like competitive perfection. You kind of have to give it leeway. You kind of have to always add an addendum when you say things like that around 40k. Like, it's a really good game, but it's not all that balanced. It's a really good game, but like, these are the things that aren't exactly perfect about it. And I think in 9th edition, you don't feel that as much when it's like 6 years honed. You know, it's like really well refined. You know, it's 8th edition to, you know, 0.2. It's done a really good job of trying its best to find a balanced experience. But I mean, like, if you compare it to things that are competitive and are really like professional, like StarCraft or League of Legends or whatever else, right? It pales. But we forget that when we're in that space. We totally forget it. And then when it gets rebuilt from the ground up, like 10th edition, I think the internet is really, really quick to sort of like get angry at this idea that this sucks and this is different, this isn't good enough, and this is not acceptable, and so on and so forth. And that becomes this really meaningful conversation that people have with each other about how hateful and shit it is, which I think is I think that's just blindness to the experience that they were having in 9th, because 9th was just simply the same experience that we're having now, except that you just had more appetite for the things that were going on, and this is just change. I don't know if that made a lot of sense, truth be told, but the overall focus is what I'm trying to get at, is that like you're in sort of like a false like dichotomy where you compare one thing to another and you think one is worse, and then all of a sudden you should be unhappy. But there's so much room for entertainment and fun and engagement with a hobby that is innately non-competitive, really, and ultimately something that has so much breadth to it. Like, balance is got to be less than 5% of why 40k is fun. It has to be, because there's so much painting involved, so much social involved, so much team effort involved, so many different moments and engagements inside the tabletop. that you only win if you really think about it. You're only winning a game for like the very end of it. You're playing a game for the entire time, and I think not enough people focus on that. Not enough people focus on the things that they can enjoy and entertain themselves with. And I think 40k in particular, I got really disheartened. I'm just on a ramble, man, but like
Yeah,
I got really disheartened on like on Reddit when I was like reading some new players coming in and being like super turned off by the fact that the entire experience online is just people getting angry. And as a result, new players who are coming in who don't know better, who don't know ninth, and have a whole lot of reasons to enjoy the game, see a lot of people just getting really, really upset about the experience. And I wouldn't want to engage in that community if that was the perpetual community's experience. I would want to turn around and go somewhere else where people seem like they're having fun. And so I think that process is something that I want to be better. I want the culture and the community. I want that engagement with each other to be more important than the balance of the game, if that's doable. I'm going to do that by myself, single-handedly. Is that all right with you, Simon?
Yeah, mate, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
you know what I mean?
I'm curious. I'm not in disagreement with you because I know there's a lot of the element of 40k and this hobby that I value deeply that is not specifically about the competitiveness or the competitive gaming portion of it.
Could I pressure you to say that it's most of what you enjoy? Is that true, do you think?
My instinct said no. I'm just gonna think about that for a second. It's probably most, but it's a small most.
Okay, yeah, okay. Fair call.
Because
you are one of the most winningest players in the world, so I guess that's
it's not
fair
about
to
winning.
say.
I want to be really clear here. It's not about winning. Competitive playing or competitive gaming or competition in general. It's to me. It's I know we memed it before about the Ricky Bobby style. Is if you're not first, you're last. But it's not about winning. The competition is about problem solving.
Oh, cool. Yeah, okay. I'm with you. I vibe this. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, like there was I think I've shared this before, but if not, I'll repeat myself. This was maybe 7 years ago. Me and Eric at his house. It was a Friday evening, and no one else. It was just in this house, in this garage, where we live, and and where it was like 9 p.m. something like that on a Friday. We're having a game, and it was like our maybe 5th, 6th game of my Dark Elder versus his Tyranids, and because we're kind of sparring partners and that kind of imagine if we're like in the gladiators, like 2 gladiators always just sparring with like wooden swords, and we're just trying different things to get points, almost like, you know what I mean? And so we're playing these games. I think that was our 2nd game for that day, or for that evening, and we'd been playing like a couple of weekends in a row, and we were adjusting our list and our tactics and our play style, etc., to eke out different board states, in essence. It's like that problem solving thing I was telling you about. And I just remember that it still sticks with me, and I don't know if Eric remembers this, but it was around 9 o'clock, because I remember him checking his phone. I think he got like a message from a friend or something like that, and they were getting in trouble somewhere in the valley or something like that, and he just looks up to me, and because we're like literally in the middle of like turn 3, and it's looking at a board state. It's like chess. So we're looking at the board state and saying, I know I can win this, but I need to work out exactly how to achieve the things I'm trying to achieve. And he just looks up at me and goes, fuck, I love this. And I was like, what? And he goes like, got mates, other mates, and they're just causing trouble and wasting their life, and this feeling of actually kind of working on problem solving and competition and like that type of, and being with a mate and I don't know, doing wholesome stuff, even if 40k can be considered wholesome, and that's what I primarily play 40k for. It's not just having forced interaction with other humans, forced socialized, not socialism, it's forced socializing. Not just, and I love list development because I love the process, and I've got a whole thing about how I actually go about creating new and strong lists from scratch, from day one, 6 months later, through practicing, through exploring, etc. I've explained it a bunch of times in person. I might do a whole podcast about it, but that's probably a third. The building and painting is a small element of it. Maybe it was before a bit more, but my wife and my kids help a bit with that nowadays.
Oh, you've got a factory going, do you?
Yeah. And then the actual competition. So maybe it's 40% of it. And that's why I said maybe you are correct in it's the majority, but it's a small majority, in that about 40% of the game is that competitive gaming portion of it, because you're in the moment, you're focused, and you're problem solving from end to end. And when the game is balanced, there's no clear answer. When you've got two equally strong competitors playing two equally strong lists in a balanced format, again, like chess, because both me and Eric played competitive chess, like me from 4 years old till first year uni, actual tournaments and all that type of stuff here in Southwest Queensland, and Eric is the same thing. Maybe not as long, but same type of upbringing, and it's about as balanced as you're going to get, and it's no dice involved and all that type of stuff. But that's what I mean. Like when you're in that zone, you're in flow, you're trying to problem solve, and it's no obvious answer. That to me is why the competitive side of 40k and having really strong, like when you're at say WC, where everyone's there, they're prepared, they're the same level of skill, same level strength of army. It's about as balanced as you're going to get. And so now you're just problem solving. And it's just, it's fantastic. Like I'm in flow that whole time. It's why I can stand up and then, when I'm switched on until I get to the bed, and then I literally just collapse and just go, and then I wake up and do it all over again. Yeah, so...
One thing you've done in this conversation that I think is really important to highlight, and I think it's quite beautiful actually, is that you've kind of separate word competition from winning, which I think, and you've added different meaning to those separate things, which I think is really cool. And I can experiment with that mentally in a way that actually we could find fun for you in so many different ways. Because what you're saying, right, is because the competition experience, the absence of knowledge of how it's going to win, you know what I mean? That problem solving experience, you're defining as competition. You're in the moment, in the flow, and you're loving. And the win is important, but not really as important as that competition experience.
100%.
And I guess what you're saying is why balance is important in that context is we can both opponents can go as hard as we want beforehand with list building and whatever, and then hit the table and then have a problem to solve.
Yep.
Yeah, but if we did that in an unbalanced game, there would be no problem to solve.
Yeah.
Which is that yeah, cool.
Yeah, in essence, exactly. So just quickly using the chess thing, it's like if we've both practiced as much as possible and we've, learnt the game enough, and then we rock up to the game, and I always white, and I'm always starting with all my pawns, and you are missing one pawn.
Yeah.
Is that
what about
would that actually be fun? Like, would that be still a fun?
Would it be fun for you to be the opposing player there, knowing that you're a better player, having less tools, a harder problem to solve? Surely you would enjoy that, right?
I mean, I can find enjoyment out of almost anything. Like I still found enjoyment out of 10. Like I think it's a bit silly, and I took a silly army, and I still enjoyed all my games. Like I can at the same time say I'm enjoying myself, and I can always one of my opponents, the Imperial guy, Drukhari guy. Sorry, my apologies for not remembering the name, buddy. But we had a mini game happening because it was about placing new objectives or some new mission where you you have no mission, no objectives in No Man's Land, and you're actually kind of spawning them in. And it was like, how many can we do? And by the I turned 3, I tabled him except for one Kronos, and I said, I'm going to leave this guy alive, and just you keep on spawning new dudes, and then I'm going to for the rest of the game just spawn new dudes. And we had 10 extra objectives in No Man's Land we created over. That's what I'm saying. Like, I can create fun wherever, but
well, I think
I'm
that's
not
a key to why
I'm not in flow during that.
Well, yeah, but I think that's a key to why you are so good at the game, right? Like, if you're able to find fun in any game and able to repeat it, even if you're losing, winning, problem solving, doesn't matter. You're engaging in this process that, regardless, is going to hone you as a weapon to get better and better at the game. And then I think that's a really, really valuable sort of message to send. Is like, if the goal is to win, then that's a waste of time. Yeah, but if the goal 100%. Is to enjoy the process, then winning will come. Yeah. And it's like a really easy way to sort of fall into accidentally being one of the best players in the world by simply knowing that you're going to enjoy the game and like make it work for you, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, just winning at whatever it is, would rarely. I don't know. You possibly have to be, some sort of psychopath for this, but just winning, and that's all it is. It's just, your flow state is winning. I think that's terrible.
I think a lot of people aim for that, man. I think a lot of people go into a tournament, like they go to an RTT with whatever they can find that's busted to get the win, right? Like that's what they do. They do that on purpose because winning is winning, and that makes you feel good. I think that's really, really important for a lot of people. I think you discount that a lot.
I'm agreeing with you though. Like I'm not saying that people aren't like that. I'm saying that that's bad, and I think you've agreed with me that it's bad. Yes. And for me, what I get out of this game, the flow state that I focus on, is the problem solving, and then the preparation of that, so I can be the best problem solver I can be, which is the list development, and then the social aspect. Like, there's a social aspect, absolutely, it's a big part of it. Yeah. Then there's the list development and practice, and that I personally love. Some people don't, and that's why people get coaching and buy lists of other people, etc. But starting from scratch and doing the whole list development over like a 3 to 6 month period, I have done that like over the 9th ed, so the 3 years of 9th ed, I did that for 4 different times at the very highest level, for 3 different ATCs and then WTC, right? And so I love that process, and I know I can do it at an extremely high level. And me personally, that flow state, that's when people say I think about 40k, that's what I think about. It's that element of it. It's not how do I play better, etc. It's the how do I get what I'm trying to achieve in my list design. And then and now we're about 60%, and then the last 40% is then the flow state when you're actually focusing on the competition, because it's just a whole bunch of problem solving, and I love that.
If I compare and contrast my experience to yours, the problem solving thing I absolutely love in the same way that you do. I desperately want to be in an uphill battle. I want to try my hardest to be able to sort of get myself out of it. If I won at deployment, I'm actually bored very fast. And so I really, really do agree with you in that balance sense, where especially if I can go as hard as I want. But I think where balance seems to matter less to me is I don't enjoy the list building in the same way that you do. I enjoy the hobby side, like the painting side of it more, right? So it doesn't matter what balance is for me at all. I can always find a cool model and paint it in a way that makes me satisfied. And on top of that, I can always find the puzzle that I need, because if I don't really care about the list building process, I can just build something that's good enough, whatever, good enough, and then take that, and then I get puzzles every single game. Some of them, sure, I get a blowout loss because it's a crap list. But a lot of the time, I get to sort of figure out how to solve this issue. I will never win a tournament. I'm always going to be a 3-2 warrior. But in that process, I get to have really, really engaging, fun games, regardless, because I kind of find my list into the lists that are as good as that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and I mean, reflecting on what you were talking about, because, as much as others / occasionally my wife suggests that I don't listen, I do pay attention to what people say. Sorry, she's listening in and giggling to herself. Let's link them together. So I think what you just described, so if we both get that flow state, the kind of the value in essence out of problem solving of the game, right? And pretty much this is, I would suggest, for the vast majority, this is probably why board games are so popular. The vast majority of people who play these type of games for fun, especially when there's a social interaction element of it. That's why I say board games as opposed to say video games specifically. It's, you get board states or problems that you're trying to solve, and you start getting sucked into it. When you play Monopoly, let's say, and you're not necessarily a professional at it, but you're not also brand new at it, and you get to a situation, you're like, oh, I can buy this, and you're kind of working it out. You're not thinking about the problems at work or anything else. You're kind of just you're focused on the game and your problem solving in your mind alongside with others, with the kind of social aspect of it, right? So a lot of people in a lot of board games, this is what people love. This is what they crave, that problem solving aspect of it. So it's not unique to 40K.
I actually agree. I think you're right. Like, that's a bulk of the enjoyment.
Yep.
Is when you're in the space and you forget about the world and you're actually just trying to solve whatever's going on in front of you.
Yep. And that's why I think it's about 40%. The social aspects, we'll say 30% or more, or maybe it's also just as much if you're not into the kind of the list building and stuff like that. And your route to get to that same moment. So we're both the same in that problem solving is our focus and our flow and our happy space, right? That kind of just problem solving and trying to get that enjoyment from the competition, so to speak. Your route, though, you don't need the game to be balanced to get to that point.
No,
and
not at all.
You can, without too much effort, you can get to that same spot that I'm craving, that I want, without a balanced game in any way. You could do it, playing tic-tac-toe probably, that's the point. Whereas for me, because I have this kind of added addition of the list building being a key part of what it is, but also, I don't know how to say this without sounding really wanky, but possibly say at a higher competition level. I don't know how to say that better, but I need to get that same feeling in essence from you that you're getting to have a balanced game. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it affects me more when it's not balanced.
Yeah, because in a way you get free cheap wins, which you're not interested in, because there's no problem solving in the list building stage.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say. Are you ever willing to I'm not willing, but do you entertain the idea of toning yourself down and playing a shit army in a GT or something like that and seeing what you can do? Do you experiment with yourself in that
100%. No, absolutely. So, again, on the drive with Justin this weekend, I actually covered some of these things. An actual training thing that Eric and I did. Probably again, around the same time frame. It was about 6-7 years ago, and he introduced me to the concept, and he was way better at it than I was. But so he was trying to get the carpet to really work. This is like intro to carpet world, and the challenge that we put to ourselves, especially with say newer players. So we did two things. There was one which was we would play about 300 to 500 points down. Right, so we would have a big unit in reserve, and we would just forget to put it on the board, right? And can we still win the game? That was one challenge, and we both did that reasonably well. Now, the second challenge that we did, and I really encourage anyone to do these challenges because they're bloody hard, and if you're really trying to get your level up, so to speak, in gaming, these are the perfect challenges to achieve. Now, I talk in the last episode, I talked a big thing about movement, right? Because movement is one of those things it's guaranteed. It's all in your control. And this is one of the problems I find with 10th, which is Overwatch, done in the movement phase, sucks donkey dick. And because in every edition up to then, movement was something that your opponent couldn't interact with. It was the only thing outside of that didn't have dice, didn't have your opponent spiking, didn't have anything else. It was just you making sure that you did your movement, your deployment, and your movement correctly, and it was 100% in your control. And that you, as a player, as a good player, hopefully, could show your mastery of the game by moving correctly. and movement was so important. That's when you got a second or third movement phase, like this again. I talked in the last episode, which was the charge and then the kind of console pile-in type phases. You could win games purely by that, and that became the challenge. Was the actual challenge, and then I've got like a mastery challenge, which only Eric managed to do. So the actual challenge was play an entire game where you got one activation of shooting and one activation of combat. Everything else was movement, and can you still win the game? Now,
Simon, these are so sick. This is such a cool concept. It really is, right? Because this is the sort of stuff that I think people should bathe in when things are broken. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you were to challenge yourself now, even though I know you love the list building side so much that obviously you're like knee deep in list building.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, the process of what you're describing for me, like, you're lighting up my eyes conceptually about, like, oh man, I could do something similar. You know what I mean? Like, that's such a cool idea, and I would always guarantee that I'd find some fun in those games. Yep. Sure, maybe I'd lose like 80% of them, but then that one game that would be really satisfying, and the whole process would be really engaging.
Yep.
There's so much breadth in what you're describing. I think it's really cool.
It's why when Eric came over was it last weekend or whenever it was, sometime this week actually. Sometime last week. He was talking up Tyranids because it plays like the old way I used to play, and it's more about kind of movement blocking, scoring your secondaries easily, and just like it doesn't matter about the damage you're doing. It's just you're just being annoying on the table and scoring your points, and so that's why he's convinced me I'm going to be switching back to Tyranids. Like I've now done the Elder, I was like, I'm not interested. I'm switching back to Tyranids, right? Because he can kind of see it But the Tyranids have lots of crazy stuff that you can do, and it's not damage related. It's just like spawn mines getting secondaries really easily, and then just like movement blocking through shit. And so I'm going to be looking into that. Anyway, let's quickly jump back to the challenge. So, all right, so I managed to do it one time. The challenge, that is, so one time shooting, one time combat, but still win the game. Eric did it a couple of times, but then he did the mastery level of that. Which was do 0 shooting and 0 combats. So I remember he was telling me, like, other than kind of mandatory stuff that you have to, like if you're in combat, you have to kind of punch back. But I think he even forgoed that. And he just, with the carpet, managed to lock down and then through kind of respawning, like a pacifist challenge in essence. And he won the game. He was so happy. I just remember that. And anyway, like that's the type of challenges that we do to get fun, but also train ourselves. To
totally.
We identify
because it's not just about the end product, although that is amazing. You're obviously honing in the most essential movement phase, right? Which is something that you need to be able to nail.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the difference between a good player and a great player is the movement phase in essence, right? And from an average player to a good player is the movement phase. Like going up, it's not how many wraith knights you add in. It's one of the games I lost in practice. It's because my wraith knights were always out of position. They were just not right in the spot, and people were like Liam was throwing things just so I couldn't get to where I wanted to be to actually be effective with them. And wraith knights can be played around. And the movement phase is where good players and great players can really flex their stuff. Again, it's why I'm disappointed about overwatching the movement phase.
Well, this is the conversation we can have even in the context of 10th. Maybe not yet, right? But at least, and I'm glad we're having this conversation overall. But I think the moral in this space now is like, if there is severe issues with what is impacting your previous capacity to have fun, especially when the movement phase is destroyed and what you're framing it, we need to be able to find other spaces to be able to home, what I mean, and have more puzzles, little micro puzzles to be able to get better. They're going to balance the game soon, whatever, right? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, whatever. They're going to fix that shit up anyway. But there's definitely things that we can do to find spaces of entertainment and puzzle solving in the context of that. Like maybe this new combat phase requires a hell of a lot more jank. It does, right? But how do you make that something that you can, turn into a little mini game? Or how do you engage in a way that maybe towering? I can't imagine how, but in a process that allows you to imagine that your army doesn't have towering, but still play it as if it does. Sorry, other way around. Imagine it doesn't have towering, So you have to sort of like play 3 Wraith Knights with that sort of impact in your own head. There's got to be ways to engage in this space, which, although there are misgivings in the way that this game is built right now, and I agree, there's a whole lot of bullshit. There still has to be ways to engage with it that actually is entertaining and makes you someone slightly better at the game.
Oh yeah, I agree, and I think we're not there yet in terms of identifying exactly what those elements were.
Yeah, I think we're in the break the game stage, you know what I mean? Where everyone just wants to bring a whole bunch of crap and just like, I don't know why people think that's fun, but they do. And they just want to bring it, right?
I mean, if you ask me, like, if in ninth, like, you know, I coached during ninth as well, like actual students and things like that. So, I could have said the movement phase, and I still think this to be true, but the movement phase was the strongest phase, and anytime you got movement or any abilities that let you move out of phase or multiple times or things like that, or where you could block movement, like that's why spawn mines were really good, etc. Like movement and movement phase were the only things that were fully in your control. They were the things that won you games, and if you could master that, you could get better as a player, right?
Well, maybe now it's like an order of operations thing now. Do you know what I mean? Like in Magic, it's a hidden information game, right? So when I'm playing cards, my opponent doesn't really know what I'm going to do next, and they have to react to what's occurring in front of me. In front of them. And maybe now you're thinking more about movement phases like an order of operations, you know, like you move things in this order that sort of forces them to make difficult decisions as you do it. Sure, you don't have 100% control, but you are like baiting them to make an Overwatch over here so you can do a deep strike over there. Or do you know what I mean? Maybe there's like a different set of rules that you can now sort of adhere to that allow you to grow in this new information state.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. I'm not suggesting no or yes. What I was getting at was I don't know right now what that is because of the way Overwatch and some of the other elements of the game is right now. It still might be Overwatch. It still might be movement. I still suspect it will be because of the board space, and you know 40k is one of those. You know, even on chess, you know, movement and kind of board state, etc. is the game in essence. You know, it's not just about taking pieces and you know shit like that. But it could be exactly what you're saying. It's like movement alongside with kind of hidden information and baiting and stuff like that. But I don't know what it is right now, and that exploration will probably keep me, you know, interested in the game as we continue on. At the short term, until the game becomes more balanced, 100%. It's why, you know, Eric's sell, in essence, to me about Tyranids is very enticing, because that movement jank and kind of not caring if they overwatch a spawn mine that's getting you a secondary because you've got 2 other spawn mine generators, you know, like
yeah, exactly.
You get the idea. Like if you can negate some of the crap that they can do and still achieve what you're trying to achieve, then it kind of gets back to, you know, that more balanced state, because it's like, yep, sure, you do whatever your bullshit rule says. I'm just gonna not play single player over here, but I'm gonna play my mission and just make it so you don't score anything. And that's interesting. Like that means you can kind of get around the balance, not with your own imbalance, but with negating their imbalance. If you know what I mean. Like that's where my head's at right now. But I will think about what you've said, and hopefully others do, and they can chime in about the that kind of what you said, the hidden information state, and bluffing being a larger part of it because of the negation of movement state shenanigans.
I just think that we're in a position now where we're just posed with new challenges, and I think people that are engaged and motivated, like much like yourself, are going to find really interesting things inside that. But then there's this whole internet spate that just hates and just gets angry, and they're not going to find anything interesting. They're just going to turn up with 3 Wraith Knights and then get angry when they lose. I think this conversation, I think, is a really good example of like trying to find really positive experiences within something that we know is functionally broken. And also on top of that, I'm confident that you can still find this fun. I'm confident you can do that, and me too, right? So I think that's an exciting idea, and it's something that I'm trying to sell. And I think this conversation shows that it's possible.
Yeah, the people that you just described though, which is like, you know, if they go to a singles event with, you know, triple Wraith Knight, yncarne, don't win the entire thing because they took the most broken things and they just wanted to people sad. And I'm talking a singles event, not teams event. Teams event, I jumped on the grenade, if you remember. So,
yeah. Thank God.
But yeah, for singles events, the analogy I was thinking about when you were talking was, what is it like? You know, if you're playing Dota or, you know, some of those other games, where your favorite character, the one that you know is broken as crap, is either banned or picked first turn, and then you just leave the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, because it's like, oh, well, if I don't get my broken shit, then no one else is. I'm not going to have fun here. I'm going to reset, you know, retry until I get my broken shit.
Yeah, I think that's really fucking common. And I hate it. And I want them to be better.
Excellent. All right, mate. I thought this was a very great conversation. I'm sure we could talk more about other stuff. So, doing a follow-up convo with others on how kind of 40k can kind of support their mental health, not just you know, how 40k can help, but also how their mental health can help them be a better 40k player. I'm sure there's another conversation there, maybe even in the works, and hopefully other people will be interested in listening to that. All right. So, is there anything you want to? Anything you want to say to kind of wrap this up, mate?
No, I've had fun. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for letting me probe your brain a bit.
Nah, it's all good, buddy. All right, and we'll see you guys maybe next week, maybe in 2 weeks' time. We'll see. It'll be shortly. All right, guys. Bye.